So, when it comes to the Montreal Canadiens, it's very clear to most people watching this team that there are a lot of places where the team can improve. There is room for improvement throughout the entire Montreal Canadiens lineup, from the guys at the top of the forward core to the guys on the blue line to the goaltenders, both the starter and the backup. However, in this video, I wanted to mostly expand on the goaltending because of some comments that were shared on BPM Sports Talk Radio from a few days ago. Now, let's just get the tail of the tape here. Heading into today's game against the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Montreal Canadiens have Samuel Montembeault, who is playing at a grand .892 save percentage and a .346 goals against. And Cayden Primeau is here too, with an .861 save percentage and a .438 goals against. Now, I can confidently say that Cayden Primeau kinda stinks. Like, he's definitely not been the same Cayden Primeau that we thought the Canadiens were going to get when he was a prospect dominating in the NCAA and doing his thing over there. Sure, Primeau has had a few games to open out the season that were pretty noteworthy. The games against New York come to mind, but in some of the other contests, some of the other goals that he's been allowing haven't been all too great. And then for Sammy Montembeault, it's been up and down for him too. He had a shutout to open things up in the 24-25 season, but ever since then, I mean, it's been a roller coaster of ups and downs and 900s and 500s. It's been inconsistent at best, terrible at worst. So, when you talk about the Canadiens and their goaltending tandem, you might start to think and say, okay, where is the problem here? Was this going to be the plan? Did the Canadiens have some sort of an idea as to where their goaltending would go from last year to this year? Because last year, the Habs' goaltending wasn't as bad as it is right now. I was about to hesitate and say it was better, but last year, Cayden Primeau had a .910 save percentage in 23 games, Montembeault a .903, and you gotta remember he really came alive towards the end of that season. And you even had Jake Allen sitting there at an .892 save percentage, which obviously is the lowest of the three, but it's still exactly what Sammy Montembeault is at right now in this season's worth of play. The point is, last year the Montreal Canadiens had better goaltending, even though they have pretty much the same cast minus Jake Allen. So with this in mind, I wanted to go over to an article published on HabsFanatics.com that talks about this Montembeault and Primeau tandem, and how, apparently, according to Georges Laraque, it may not have actually been the plan for the Canadiens. Let's take a look at the article. It's going to be linked in the description. According to former Montreal Canadiens player and current BPM host Georges Laraque, the management's plan was to never have a tandem of Montembeault and Primeau this season. It seems like another goaltender was clearly in the plans. Like, let's say a Yaroslav Askarov, or perhaps another goaltender who is still available, like John Gibson. Now, firstly, let's just say that Yaroslav Askarov was apparently targeted by the Montreal Canadiens to a pretty extreme capacity. It got to the point that we were making consistent video updates about Askarov and the trade conversation surrounding his name. Montreal was very much in it the entire time, it appeared. But if you scroll down to the excerpt of the Twitter video, it's posted also onto social media, Georges Laraque talking about Montembeault and Primeau. He says this: "The Canadiens made a mistake by trading Jake Allen for a third-round pick. We'd take him back today to make a duo with Montembeault. It's easy to say in hindsight. But the thing is, when they had three goalies and the Montreal Canadiens didn't want to lose Primeau on waivers, as we all know, they traded Jake Allen. The mistake, though, is that if you're going to do that, you had to ensure you had a tandem for this season, and I'm sure that in the Montreal Canadiens' minds, their tandem for this year was not Primeau and Montembeault. You can't expect to be in the mix with Primeau and Montembeault in net." And so, the way it's read, it seems a lot more like an inference, more like a guess, but Laraque is very definitive in his language, saying, I'm sure the Montreal Canadiens had a different goaltending tandem in mind for the 24-25 season. Whether or not that included a guy like Askarov or any other name, it depends. But realistically, when you think about the transition from last year to this year, it's really easy to take a look at the save percentages last year and say, yeah, Primeau's at a .910, he's going to take over, and he's going to be a crazy good 1B kind of backup next year. Montembeault, he came alive at the end of the season, okay, we can keep him here, and he'll start the season off hot, and he did do that in the first two games pretty much, and then the Canadiens are just going to keep on rolling with Primeau Montembeault, because these guys are young and they're taking their time to become NHL stud goaltenders, pretty much. Jake Allen traded over to New Jersey. By the way, he's doing pretty well, I would say, with the Devils, although the Devils do have a much better D-core than the Canadiens do. Just to give a little bit of an update on him, I mean, Jake Allen, in the small sample size he has had this year, because you gotta remember, he's playing behind Jacob Markstrom, he's at a .904 save percentage in 5 games played. Definitely a bit better than the Canadiens goaltenders right now, and much better than what he had done with the Habs in the past. But with this tandem in mind, I look back to the conversation we had yesterday talking about Kevin Lankinen and the Vancouver Canucks, and I say similar things with the Montreal Canadiens, like Kevin Lankinen, for example, just as an example, he signed with Vancouver because there was a spot open, because Artur Shilovs and Jiri Patera were not guaranteed to being able to carry the load while Thatcher Demko was recovering from injury. Kevin Lankinen signed in Vancouver to win himself a spot, and he did so at an extraordinarily cheap cap hit. In Montreal, I mean, it's not like Samuel Montembeault or Cayden Primeau are going to be top-tier goaltenders anyway. I get that they would have been fighting for that starter spot, but the starter spot was definitely up for grabs still. None of these guys are Carey Price after all. I'm starting to think, like, if there are goaltenders around the NHL in the market, like Kevin Lankinen, for example, that wanted more of an opportunity rather than just money, where exactly were the Canadiens when a lot of these goaltenders were available? Were they too focused in on Yaroslav Askarov? Were they trying to get something done with John Gibson or Trevor Zegras or whomever? Just kind of get a dual package deal done with the Anaheim Ducks? Or was this really the plan? Georges Laraque is saying that the Canadiens' tandem was not the plan, but I do wonder where their sights were set if they had any other ideas in mind. Obviously, they traded away Jake Allen, so they weren't really committing to him. Third-round pick, I guess you can say it was not really the best trade, but, I mean, Allen was playing behind a worse team when he was in the Montreal Canadiens organization. Who knows if he would be able to do similar things to what he's doing in New Jersey right now if he were still on Montreal. But I guess as the season chugs along, the Montreal Canadiens don't really have too many options unless they went down the ridiculous and crazy unexpected route of calling up Connor Hughes, for example, a guy whom we did make a video about just a few days ago because he has been tearing up the AHL's Laval Rocket. But with the health problems to Jakub Dobes, you can say that maybe there isn't an opening for a guy like Hughes to get called up. Who really knows, though? I mean, we'll see if the Canadiens just ride the wave out here with Montembeault and Primeau, if there is some sort of a trade to get another goaltender into the mix, if they try to correct their mistakes by going after some random dude who happens to still be on the market, which does sound unrealistic considering it's now November, but still. There are a lot of question marks here in net, and I wanted to bring up the idea that maybe the Canadiens had some sort of a plan to navigate it better, but they just did not execute. Do you think this reflects poorly on Kent Hughes and his ability as a GM, on his perception of how these guys are able to perform? Do you think the Canadiens as a team just misjudged how good Primeau and Montembeault would be? What were your opinions about these players heading into the year? Do you think they would be able to continue with 900-plus save percentage goaltending? Or were you more of the mind that this result that we're seeing is more so of what they're capable of rather than the extended better numbers from last year? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll leave a link in the description to the article. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on. And bye.